The sun hung low over Bitterroot Valley, a merciless orb that scorched the cracked earth and turned the air thick with heat. The sparse grass, yellowed and brittle, crunched underfoot as Lila sat on the sagging porch of her family's farmhouse, her hands resting heavily on her swollen belly. At 17, she was a figure of whispers and sideways glances in the small town of Dusthaven, a place where secrets festered like sores under the relentless Montana sun. Her pregnancy, now in its 8th month, was a scandal that clung to her like the sweat-soaked dress she'd outgrown months ago. The fabric strained against her rounded frame, a constant reminder of her body's betrayal, not just the child growing inside her, but the weight she'd carried long before, the heft that made her mother's eyes narrow with disgust and the townsfolk's tongues wag with judgment. Lila's fingers traced the curve of her stomach, a protective gesture for the life she both cherished and feared. She was alone in this, as she had been since the boy who'd whispered promises of love under the stars had vanished, leaving her to face the consequences of their fleeting passion. The farmhouse behind her creaked in the faint breeze, its weathered boards sagging under the weight of years and neglect. It was a home in name only, a place where love had long since withered, replaced by her mother's sharp words and her father's absence. Agnes, her mother, stood at the edge of the yard, her thin frame rigid as she faced a stranger who loomed like a monument against the horizon. He was no ordinary man. Gideon, known in these parts as the Giant of Bitterroot, was a rancher whose solitary existence on the far side of the ridge had made him a figure of myth among the townsfolk. His broad shoulders seemed to carry the weight of the sky itself, and his hat, tilted low, cast a shadow over eyes that gleamed with a quiet intensity. Beside him stood a single cow, its ribs faintly visible under a dusty hide, its head bowed as if resigned to its fate. The animal was a poor offering, lean and weathered, but Agnes's voice carried a desperate edge as she gestured toward Lila without meeting her daughter's gaze. "She's sturdy, good for work," Agnes said, her words clipped and practiced, as if she'd rehearsed this moment in the long, sleepless nights since Lila's pregnancy became impossible to hide. "She'll cook, clean, mend, whatever you need. Better than that scrawny beast you're offering." Lila's heart thudded, a heavy rhythm that echoed in her ears. She'd heard her mother's rants about fixing the shame, the endless tirades about how Lila's condition had tarnished the family's name, as if Dusthaven had ever held them in high regard. But this was beyond cruelty. Trading her like livestock? For a cow? Her fingers dug into the splintered wood of the porch, the pain grounding her as her mind reeled. She wanted to scream, to hurl herself at her mother and demand an explanation, but her body felt leaden.